Welcome in. What's Right with Nick Wright, episode 297. We will today, in very short order, get to the NFC Championship Game, which somehow we had maybe our longest pod of all time and never got to. I blame Damonza. He wouldn't shut up on Tuesday. I mean, my God, had all these Chiefs takes, so many things to say, and because of that, we couldn't get to Jalen Hurts and the Eagles and Jayden Daniels and all of that. We also, I did not anticipate, sometimes I see stories coming down the pike. I did not anticipate the latest as the world turns in relation to Bronny James. So we'll get to that as well, and a little kind of playoff picks recap. All that coming up shortly. Also, a true media tour for me this week. The Collins podcast, Levitard show, Dan Patrick show, just did Pardon My Take, invited myself onto Adam Shine's show, went on Damon Amendolara's show. I'm leaving some stuff out. There is something incredibly cool happening. I don't think I've even told Damonza, and I can't. Damonza, call me after the show to remind, there's something really cool happening next week around the time I get to New Orleans. I don't want to, it's not my news, so to speak, to share right now. And so I don't want to share it on the air. But a lot of stuff's a little oversaturation, I suppose, by me. But I'm too excited to talk about the Super Bowl and these games and the refs and the lunatics and all of it. Also, please like, rate, subscribe, review. Our goal was 200,000 by the Super Bowl on YouTube. We're at 171, so we're not going to get 29,000 between now and the Super Bowl. Maybe we get to 175 by our post-Super Bowl show, so we can do that, but also subscribe on iTunes, Spotify, all that stuff. Okay, here's what missed the cut. It's all Pro Bowl related, and Damonza, I can just fix the Pro Bowl situation.
Okay.
Because it's not actually a problem that Drake May and Russell Wilson are going to participate in the Pro Bowl games. The problem is that they will now be called Pro Bowlers for the 2024 season. The problem is that on Pro Football Reference, and you're going to look at the 2024 season, and it's going to say Drake May was a Pro Bowler and Patrick Mahomes wasn't. And that's going to be like, that's weird. So I actually think this is a bookkeeping solution. The solution is bookkeeping. I think the official NFL record books should go back retroactively and moving forward and have the rule be very simple. In order to be called a Pro Bowler, you have to make the original roster. Those are your, however many it is, 106 Pro Bowlers a year are the guys on the original roster. If you were an injury replacement or a guy who opted out replacement, then you do not get on Pro Football Reference or in the NFL record books a Pro Bowl designation next to your name. That way we don't have this weird stuff where it's like, wait, Tyler Huntley, the year Lamar got hurt and he started 4 games, was a Pro Bowler? That's on his record. So it's a bookkeeping solution more than anything. You can't ask Josh Allen to go play in this game. He's devastated. He hurt his hand. Lamar and Derrick Henry are devastated. So it's just, that's the way you do it. The other thing that Greg Jennings brought up, which is a good point, is the Pro Bowl used to be in Hawaii. And it was a vacation for your family, and it was cool. Now it's in Orlando, and nothing against Orlando. People are less likely to be like, okay, I want to spend time there as opposed to going to Hawaii. So there's the solutions. Damonza, you had an interesting idea that I think is worth throwing out to the audience before we get to the NFC Championship Game.
Yeah, I'm mad that I didn't think of what you said because that makes a lot of sense. But I just said that they should make the Pro Bowl to where up-and-coming stars in the college team should be able to play. So it makes it more embarrassing for the NFL players that didn't make it, incentivizes them to make it, and gives the college players a little bit of a taste.
Well, yeah, and so maybe gives more pressure for the NFL guys to actually
make
take
the list.
Well,
Yeah.
not only to make the list, but guys who made the list to participate. It's like, listen,
Right.
you opt out, it's fine, but Shedeur Sanders taking your spot, whatever it is. I think it's kind of Senior Bowl-ish, but would be pretty cool. All right,
Right.
let's get to the NFC Championship game. Go ahead, Damonza.
So Philly obviously washed the Commanders in the NFC Championship game. Do you think they might have done that just to come up short next Sunday?
Well, I obviously think the Chiefs are the better team, and I obviously think the Chiefs are going to win the Super Bowl. But I also would like to give the Eagles credit because that was a tour de force rushing performance. And sometimes someone else has a take that I hear and I'm like, God dog it. That's the right take here. And Wilds had it on this football game, which was I watched Commanders Eagles and I was like, man, Jayden really got let down by his role players. When McNichols, De'Ami Brown, and Austin Eckler are fumbling the ball. Like that, if you're going to have a bunch of mistakes, as painful as it is, you want it to be like it was with the Chargers or the Lions. Your star quarterback kills you because at least then it feels fair. I know that sounds silly, but you just don't want guys who are not main characters of the story deciding your season. It's one of the reasons I get so nervous with the Chiefs kick returner, Nico Remigio, who's an electric player, but he's not one of the main characters here, and just the chance of him fumbling the ball or something bad happening there. So I was making it about those Washington mistakes. And Wilds on the show said, man, that game was over on the very first play that Philly had the ball. He's like, when Saquon Barkley in the regular season destroys you, goes for 200 yards. And then Saquon Barkley in the second game in the regular season goes for 100 yards in the first quarter. And then Saquon Barkley on the first play of your playoff game goes for a 60-yard touchdown. You're not beating that team. And I'm like, okay, that's actually correct. Actually, you're like, even if Washington hadn't turned the ball over, they had no chance all year long of stopping Saquon. And that is also what I think is so interesting about this upcoming Super Bowl, because Saquon is great, and I have taken my beating on being dead wrong about him. Like, there was no preseason take I had more wrong than the Eagles missing the playoffs and Saquon not being a difference maker. I was just as wrong as someone can be about a sports take about that exact thing. The Eagles not only didn't miss the playoffs, they won the division, they got their 2 seed, they're in the Super Bowl, and Saquon, as opposed to not being a difference maker, had arguably the single greatest season in the history of the running back position. Dead wrong across the board on it. With all that said, I don't think Saquon's going to annihilate the Chiefs. I'm sure he'll be good. The Chiefs are too good at tackling, too buttoned up, too well coached to let the other team's best player ruin the game. So it's going to have to be more on Jalen Hurts, and we'll get to Jalen shortly, and more on the other guys. Saquon will be good. I don't think he's going to be dominant the way he has been up to this point. The other piece of this game that I really do want to give Philly credit for is it was early and it was still close. And they went for a 4th and 5. I think the score was 13-12 when they did it. And Jalen Hurts threw as good of a pass as you can throw down the sideline to A.J. Brown, and they kept control of the game, and they went on to score. That was the single highest leverage non-turnover play of that football game, and it wasn't Saquon, and it wasn't something that was schemed wide open, a crossing route with a guy running naked over the middle. It was a difficult throw. It was a high leverage throw. Jalen made the throw, and A.J. Brown made the catch. So credit to them, because that was enough. That was the first moment of the game where it's like, oh, could Washington kind of take control here, and Philly didn't give them the opportunity. So that, I think that has to be said, because I've been not so much of a Jalen Hurts critic as much as a bit of a Jalen Hurts skeptic. And again, we'll get to Hurts in a second. But before we do that, let's talk tush pushes, Damonza.
Yeah, you've been saying that they should. You've been saying that they should ban the tush push for years now. You say it's bad for television. Do you think with all of those offsides or the encroachment penalties from Washington that we've gotten closer to that getting banned?
All right, so that was a wild sequence. And also, I know I'm going to sound annoying here, probably. I was shocked how few people knew the referees could award a touchdown. So many media members were like, I've never heard. And again, this is my own nerddom, I guess. But I even knew the language of it. It's like a palpably unfair act. It is in place for really two scenarios. One is this. A guy breaks a Saquon-esque super long run, has nothing but daylight in front of him, and a player from the bench runs on the field and tackles him. That they had to have a rule in place for if someone, a coach or a player from the sideline, stops an obvious touchdown that is more punitive than we'll give you the ball at the one. And that just intellectually makes perfect sense. That if that rule was not actually written as such, then if in overtime of a game a guy is running free, you would do that. Like that, it would actually be the smart thing to do, to run on the field and stop him. The other reason, and so it was, people when I say that think of Mike Tomlin and Jacoby Jones, but Tomlin, like the referees could have in that situation, theoretically, if they thought Tomlin did that on purpose, or if he did actually trip Jacoby Jones, awarded them a touchdown. The other scenario it's in place for is the one the referees were discussing here, but not really, which is if a team just commits a pre-snap penalty again and again and again, the game can never move forward. So I'll give you a for instance. Let's say, and this is not a likely scenario, but it's likely enough that the rule would have to be in place. Okay? So Damonza, let's say in this game, Jayden Daniels has the ball, throws an interception. It's the exact Goff thing, where Goff throws a pick and then gets annihilated trying to make the tackle. Except instead of the guy scoring, the guy is stopped at the one. And the team doctor says, oh, we have to check you for a head injury, and in fact, we have to take you to the locker room. And Goff is going to be, even if he's ruled eligible to play, he's not going to be in for, 10 to 15 minutes, however long that takes. Without this rule in place, the smart thing, and it's, Philly ball on the one. The smart thing for the defense to do would to be just encroach for 20 minutes and let them move the ball an inch, a quarter of a half inch, quarter, whatever, until they get the signal, oh, the check's done on Goff. You know what I mean? Now go ahead and play defense. You're giving up literal, millimeters, and what you're gaining is time. The other thing you could do is be like, screw you, we hate you, we're not letting this game end. We're just going to, the clock stops. And so that's why that rule is there. It actually makes perfect sense that the referees have to have an ability to be like, no, screw you, it's a touchdown. I did not think it was used properly, even threatened to use properly in this specific situation, because those guys were not trying to waste time. And Jalen was doing a hard count. Jalen was trying to draw him And I also thought the hard count was bad strategy by Philly because you want to do a hard count when you're on your own goal line where a false start doesn't hurt you at all and an offside really hurts the defense. Doing a hard count at the half-yard line, you're gaining almost nothing and you're really putting a lot of pressure on your linemen not to make a mistake. Okay? So there's the palpably unfair act, super nerdy 8 minutes. Now as far as the tush push. That sequence was what I was talking about when I said last year they're going to get rid of it. They're going to say it's for player safety. And you could even argue that there because Luo hit Jalen in the head on one of those dives. But it's just because it's terrible television. It's an entertainment sport, and that was awful TV for a long time, okay? And I also said last year, and I will say again, the only reason it has not been banned yet, Damonza, is because the Eagles aren't quite good enough at it. And by that I mean this. It is a basically guaranteed 1 to 2 yards. If it ever became a guaranteed 3 to 4 yards, and they could do that on 1st and 10, and then 2nd and 6, and then 3rd and 2, it would be banned immediately. Because the sport would be, you know what I like?
Smart, they'll never do that. I mean,
correct.
I'm assuming, they're never going to do that.
Right, but so, but I think everyone, this is where anyone that's like, oh, it would be so unfair to ban it. What if the Eagles got that good at it? Then you would it would not be more or less unfair, but it'd be like, okay, now if you think it's unfair to ban it now, then you would have to think it's unfair to ban it just because they got better at it. But we would all be like, no, it's getting banned. Like, that, you can't have that be the whole offense. Yeah, here is why I actually think Sunday as a whole made it more likely the tush push is here to stay. Because other teams can't do it. The Bills kept trying and kept failing. If the whole league, could do it consistently, it's just like, okay, well, this sucks. Like, it's not good TV. Everyone does it. There's no creativity. I think they'd get rid of it. But when Josh Allen is flailing about, can't get it, doesn't get the 2-point conversion, fumbles the ball, doesn't get the 4th and 1, I feel like the league looks at it and says, all right, like, it's a Philly thing. They're the only ones who have figured it out. They clearly, it's not even just personnel because Jason Kelce retired. They had 2 different centers in this game, and they did it no matter what. So I actually think it's probably here to stay for at least another year. All right, let's talk Jalen Hurts.
Hurts came out and said they let me out of my straitjacket a little bit. Sirianni said it was nothing. Do you think that this is something with Hurts? I think everybody's reading too deep into it. That's my opinion on it. But,
okay, so why do you think he said it?
I mean, because he threw the ball more. I think they were less reliant. I can't say they were less reliant on Saquon, but it was probably he just threw the ball more. He was letting it rip, and I don't know if that was necessarily the style that they've been playing with all year. I know A.J. Brown was complaining about not getting the ball thrown to him. So.
Yeah. So I don't think Damonza, it's like a 5-alarm fire. Part 5-alarm fire. Okay. Here's what I do think. I think Jalen Hurts feels like I'm a better player than you're allowing me to show. And I'm a great leader, and I care about winning first and foremost. So I'm not going to make a big problem of this. But when given the opportunity, I will remind America I can do this whenever I am given the chance. My numbers are depressed, not because of my own talent, but because it's what my coach stylistically wants us to be. Now, I disagree with Jalen Hurts. I don't think Jalen Hurts can consistently drop back and pass the ball, and that's a winning formula. But he thinks he can. And so the reason I think it's something is, it is similar to after the A.J. Brown comments when Jalen had a big game and he sat down and was like, so is that what y'all wanted to see? He has, I think, a bit of frustration that they have an offense that it's not that it's run focused on Saquon. It's that it's also run focused on Jalen. So many designed quarterback runs, the quarterback power stuff. And I think he feels like he is in a straitjacket a bit. That he is prevented from showing the world how excellent he can be. Which gets me to the Super Bowl. Because obviously in the last Super Bowl, it was a drop back passing game and he was awesome. I think he's going to have to do that again for Philly to win this game. I do not think that the recipe of amazing defense, amazing Saquon Barkley, and that would be enough to beat the Chiefs. I think he's going to have to somewhat go toe-to-toe with Mahomes. Not exactly, but at least some 10-9 rounds. And we'll see if he can do it. He clearly thinks he can. And I think Jalen Hurts deserves massive credit for his leadership, his toughness, what a great teammate he is, his ability to protect the football. I think he deserves credit for all of those things. I also don't think we need to, or I'm not going to pretend that I think he is a great drop back passer just because the Eagles keep winning. Because I don't. And so I think that is a real point of contention within the Eagles. Go ahead, Damonza.
So Neil says, or he asks, isn't it entirely possible that both the straitjacket comment and the this is what you wanted to see is just the team trolling the media who wants there to be more drama than there really is?
It's possible. I don't think it's likely. I don't think that they are intentionally creating this kind of narrative around them and then like privately behind closed doors laughing about it.
We got them.
Yeah, I don't think that's what it is. I do think there is a real tension there. I don't think it's debilitating. I don't think it's going to have an impact on the Super Bowl, but I don't think it is that they win these games and then
all year.
Yes, right. And I think part of it really is I don't know that Sirianni and Jalen Hurts are on the exact same page all the time. It just doesn't feel that way to me. Again, I'm not there, but I don't think it's trolling the media. All right, let's talk about the other side of that game, Jayden Daniels.
Jayden Daniels had a rookie season, quite the rookie season. Can't even really call it a rookie season. He exceeded any expectations. We've obviously seen sophomore slumps, but this guy seems pretty promising. Do you think that the Commanders are going to be contenders moving forward? Is this going to continue?
Well, I think that contenders is, to me, a touch strong. They clearly have their guy at quarterback. And I think that he is going to enter next year as a consensus top 10 guy. Consensus. And I think that some people will have him enter next year at number 5, Damonza. I think next year, the 1 through 4 is going to be pretty locked in. 1 Patrick, 2 Josh, 3 Lamar, 4 Burrow. Maybe some people will have Burrow ahead of Lamar. I won't. Because as much as the concerns about Lamar in the playoffs are real, The concerns about Burrow's team making the playoffs are real. So you've got to give Lamar the nod there. I think some people will then say number 5 is Jayden Daniels. Now, if Jalen Hurts wins this game, then I guess number 5 is probably going to be Jalen Hurts. But I think that he is going to be consensus top 10 and borderline top 5. I do think that if I'm the Commanders, I am having someone on my team do a real deep dive into the off seasons of this past off season of the Texans and the Packers and figure out why those two teams didn't take a step forward the way people thought they would after their quarterbacks. I know Jordan Love wasn't a rookie. CJ was, but Jordan Love's first year starting. Had this type of year, not quite as good as Jayden, this type of year. And say it again?
Injuries, I feel like, was the common denominator for... I mean, Jordan Love got injured directly. CJ Stroud's receivers went down one by one. Nico Collins came back after like 3 games.
So listen, if it is as simple as that, then it's a pretty quick autopsy. I felt like it was a little more than that because the Texans fired their offensive coordinator. They didn't, they clearly felt they didn't move forward offensively the way they should have. So right. I look at, there's a couple ways to look at the Commanders' playoff run. One way is literally tied the record for the furthest any team's ever gotten with a rookie quarterback. Beat the 1 seed and, that won 2 road playoff games. That's one way to look at it. Another way to look at it is played a Tampa team that people liked, but nobody thought was a contender. And that game came down to a couple mistakes Tampa made. A fumbled handoff, early snap, and all of a sudden, instead of them taking the lead, they're tying the game and they lose. A Lions game where the other team turned the ball over 5 times and you turn the ball over 0. And then an Eagles game where you got annihilated and allowed 55 points. So kind of glass half full, glass half empty. So I think that Jayden's excellent. And he has exceeded anyone's realistic expectations. I also do fear for the Commanders that they are going to be the trendy pick similar to how the Packers or the Texans were. And as Ben Solak says all the time, and poor Ben getting killed on the internet this week, in the NFL, progression is not linear always. It's not always here and then there and then there. Like the NBA is like that. The NBA, it's usually like you're a bad team, you fight to be 500, you make the playoffs, you go on one deep playoff run, and then you're a contender. That's really how it works in the NBA typically. The NFL... it's a lot of fits and starts up and down, like trying to move. So I'm not trying to pour cold water on the Commanders season, but I wouldn't, going into next year, I would anticipate Detroit is better than them.
I mean, you're
Philly is better than
them.
them.
Losing to Philly, like if they obviously had to eventually play Philly, sounds like that kind of undid everything that they did.
It's not that it undid everything they did. It's that in the NFL, every year really you are starting from scratch. And this idea that, well, we got so far last year, therefore, you're really truly starting over. And when I look at the roster, I do think Detroit will be better next year. I do think Philly will be better next year. And if we want to say they're right there then with everyone else, I don't know. Maybe. I mean, I think that for Washington next year, the expectation should be, let's make the playoffs again. I think anything past that is probably a little too strong. All right, let's go to the AFC. You think that's fair, right, Damonza?
Yeah, that's very fair. I wouldn't say like they're going to go and win the Super Bowl next year. I would say like,
that's why to me, contender is like every year there are 5 or 6 what I consider contenders. Now, that doesn't mean those are the only teams that can win the Super Bowl, but they're the only teams that if they won the Super Bowl, it wouldn't be shocking, right? And going into this year, I think the consensus 6 teams were Chiefs, Bills, Ravens. Well, maybe the Bills weren't one. They were to me, but maybe they weren't to the general public. Lions, Eagles, Niners. And I know the Niners fell apart, but they were, say it again?
No, I was going to throw the Bengals in there, but yeah, that's
that's
pretty fair.
No, they were. You're 100% correct.
Of the season, yeah.
The Bengals probably were where I had the Bills in my head.
Right.
And then there's the next group of teams that to me this year, Texans, Packers were, 2 of them where it's like, okay, we expect them to be good, but I'm not ready to call them contenders. All right, let's do Chiefs.
So you and Brew had wildly different takes on why the Chiefs have become villains. Wilds actually disagreed with both of you guys and said that they're not villains at all. What's your take there?
So, yeah, first Wilds thinks that the Chiefs aren't hated. And I think that's an insane opinion, personally. He's like, look at how many people watch the games, all this stuff. I think the Chiefs are, he also says hate watching is a myth. And that might be true. But I think sports, it doesn't really work as hate watching. It works as rooting for the other team. Yeah. You know what I mean? You are deeply invested in the game. You're not hating watching the game. You're rooting for the other team. I think the Chiefs are simultaneously the league's most popular team and the league's most hated team. I think amongst young people or super casual fans, the Chiefs are probably the most popular team in America. I think amongst people that have Sunday ticket, the Chiefs are the most hated team other than your team's number 1 rival. So, that's, if you're a Steelers fan, I think you hate the Ravens and your number 2 hate is the Chiefs. I think if you are a Vikings fan, you hate the Packers and maybe the rest of the NFC North, and your number 2 most disliked team is the Chiefs because of the success and other things. And the other things is doing a lot of work there, and I'll get to it in a second. Brew's answer was they're not exciting anymore. That they went from being a high-flying team, and now they're not. And I think that is absolutely wrong. I think that maybe they would... So, here's where I think Brew is kind of right. If they were still scoring 40 points all the time, I think they would be less hated. But not scoring 40 or even more than 30 all year did not make them hated. What made them hated was the success combined with the conspiracies. And I do not believe you can unwind
the success of it, probably too.
Correct.
Right.
It's that all these games are close. It feels like they're vulnerable when they're not, and then you add to it the level of conspiracy associated with them. And I think the ref stuff has taken on a totally different tone and feel over the last 6 weeks, to where it is the overwhelming sentiment for a lot of people that the games are not on the level. And I feel like that is driving the villain narrative more than anything. Because you look at the other, the Patriots were villains. Yes, the success. But then you add to it that they did have 2 separate, documented, adjudicated cheating scandals. You then add to it that Belichick embraced that villain role with his gruff demeanor and kind of shadowiness. The Chiefs are none of that. They've had no controversy.
Maybe the reason that the Chiefs are hated.
What do you mean?
Because maybe back then when they were doing all that cheating and they were winning, it's like, oh, the Chiefs must be cheating. That's why they're getting all these wins. They're about to three-peat.
Oh, I like that take. That the audience has been conditioned to think the only way to win at this level is to break the rules. Okay, maybe. But Andy Reid is not Bill Belichick personality-wise. And Mahomes is just visually, objectively talented in a way Brady wasn't, that it's captivating for the audience. So you wouldn't think that they should be hated. But I think the other, and I didn't talk about this on the show because it was just too unwieldy. But the non-ref, non-style, non-all of it part of some percentage of the Chiefs' hate is, and sorry, hate to go here with it, but it's true, is actually misogyny. And it's anti-Taylor Swift being shown for 18 seconds on the games. It is a reflexive allergy to, why are you showing this woman cheering for this team as often as you are during my football games? You saw a lot more of that last year when people were freaking out over when they documented it, was 42 seconds of airtime that Taylor would get during the games cheering. But a lot of that just feels like really just kind of old school, this is my sandbox, get out of my sandbox, you know what I mean? He-Man woman hater type of nonsense. All right, speaking of nonsense, I did not see this one coming, but Bronny was a super hot topic on a bunch of shows yesterday. My dear friend Colin Coward, when I was on his pod last night, led the pod talking about Bronny, and I told him I totally disagreed with him. I know it was a big topic on ESPN, so go ahead. Let's do the Bronny discussion.
So Bronny got some real minutes in that Philly game the other day, even first quarter minutes, in fact. He struggled, and JJ went on the podium and said that he kind of blamed himself, put him on national television. Stephen A. even came out and blamed LeBron or said that LeBron has a serious role in it. What's your take on the situation?
I was shocked at the reaction to this game. Shocked. Now listen, Bronny did not play well. He was 0 for 5. He had 3 turnovers. There's no denying. And Bronny now is 1 for 16 shooting in the NBA. I think 0 for 7 from 3. And that's brutal for a number of reasons, but not the least of which are he's going to play so little. Now, even if he has a couple decent, 2-3 minute stretches in garbage time, his numbers are going to be horrifying. And so, that just, is life of a late second round pick into the bench guy. Where I was shocked was there has been so much disingenuous commentary surrounding the Lakers and surrounding Bronny, and folks immediately resuming it after being quiet on all fronts for a month. The moment Bronny gets some more NBA minutes and plays poorly, it just struck me as transparent. So let me go to the Lakers piece of it and then the Bronny piece of it. I know you all saw it. It was TV commentary and also very popular social media posts where they would show the Lakers record last year with Darvin Ham through 10 games, 12 games, 20 games, 24 games, and then their record this year with J.J. Redick. Show last year they won the in-season tournament with Darvin Ham. This year they didn't even qualify for it with J.J. Redick. And it was, everyone blamed Darvin. But now look at them now. And then the Lakers got hot, moved up to the 5 seed. The records are wildly different. They're 5 games over 500 earlier than they have been in any year in the last few years. And all those accounts and takes went away. And the exact same thing happened with Bronny. So Bronny started off in the G League struggling. And you would see his stats and his plus minus and his all of it publicized all the time. And then the last few weeks, he is crushed in the G League. Last 3 games in the G League, 23, 6, and 5 averages. A career high, he had 30-something the other night. 43% from the field, 46% from 3, 89% from the line. And all those accounts went away entirely. Just, we're not talking about it. So I was like, well, that's just shitty. And so there was so much of, oh my goodness, I know this is what LeBron wants, but is it good for Bronny? Is he, so much of that. And then when Bronny was cooking in the G League, which now people are going to be like, oh, anybody can cook in the G. The general conventional wisdom was, oh, he's really going to struggle in the G League, guys. He didn't play that well at USC. It's grown men in there fighting to, get a roster spot. And he had a bit of a slow start. But overall, on the year now in the G League, and don't show the stats of the other guys yet. Just stay with me on this. He's 16-4-4. And again, in the last few weeks, 23 points per game, 6 rebounds per game, 5 assists per game, 2 steals per game on 43, 46, 89 splits. And the other thing you heard a ton of right after he was drafted was, it's unfair to the guys. He took someone's roster spot. He took someone's draft position. This is nepotism at its worst. Forget the fact that with an end of the second round pick, if someone said, hey, here's the deal, there's a kid who was a legitimate top high school prospect who had a massive medical event that derailed his freshman year of college. However, his, at the NBA Combine, his shooting was off the charts. Everyone says his intangibles as far as character stuff are off the charts. And oh yeah, one just added bonus. He literally has the same DNA as arguably the greatest athlete of all time. Do you think he's worth a flyer? I think a lot of people are like, yeah, sure. 55th pick, 56th pick. Why not? None of that commentary was there at the time. And then he was kind of validating the belief by his play in the G League. And then he gets these minutes against the Sixers. And Stephen A. pleads with LeBron to stop this as if, guys, if you have an older team like the Lakers and you are on a back-to-back, it is totally reasonable and expected that the coach might then say, hey, kid on the two-way who we drafted, who's playing the best ball of his career, this is a game you might get some minutes. Be ready. Now, again, Bronny played very, very poorly. But for that to then be a controversy is absurd. But here's what really bothered me. If we are going to recite Bronny's current NBA stats, then let's put them in context. So, he was taken 55th. There were 58 picks in this year's draft because there were picks taken away. The guy taken 56th has not played because he had knee surgery. So we will compare Bronny's NBA stats to the guys taken 57th and 58th. We can put them on the screen. Bronny averaging 3 minutes a game, 0.3 points, 0.4 rebounds, 0.3 assists. That's, can you imagine something being worse? Well, I don't know, man. The guy taken 57th is averaging 0.8 points, 1 rebound, 0.3 assists. And the guy taken 58th, who's played double minutes per game, all the other Bronny and Ulrich, 3.5 minutes when he's played. Ariel's 7.5, 1.6 points, 1.8 minutes, 0.4 assists per game. They're all the same. What about their G League numbers? And this is where people are really disingenuous. So Bronny's G League numbers, 28 minutes per game, 16, 4, and 4. The guy taking 56th has not played because he had knee surgery, fine. Guy taking 57th, 6 points, 7 rebounds, 1 assist. The guy taking 58th, 6 points, 5 rebounds, 0.6 assists. So what the hell are we talking about? It was such a narrative. Wasted draft pick, service of LeBron's ego, unfair. Okay. So the guy, let's just assume the Lakers board was what everyone else's board was. The 3 guys taken after him, again, put the G League numbers up again, because I think it's worth noting. Bronny's played 28 minutes a game. The guy taking 57 has played 24 minutes a game. The guy taking 58 has played 22 minutes a game. So Bronny is getting a little more opportunity. Bronny's averaging 16 a game. The other 2 guys are averaging 6.6 and 6.7. Bronny's getting you 4.2 rebounds a game. The other 2 guys are getting you 7.5 and 5.7. Bronny's getting you 4.2 assists a game. The other guys are getting you 1.1 and 0.6. So here's why I bring this up. The little bit of data we have suggests, oh, that's a fine draft pick. It's totally in line. In fact, he is slightly outperforming the guys taken after him. So to have that data and then seize on 10 bad minutes against the Sixers and do an impassioned plea to LeBron or to the league or to the Lakers to stop this like it's a farce is, to me, just wild. And the fact that all of these people were so quiet in the weeks leading up to it when he was cooking in the G League. Now, again, you might be like, oh, Nick, nobody's going to be talking about the G League. I'd be fine with that, except they were when he first started in the G League and was playing really poorly. And so I just think it's bullshit. And I think there is a lot of, I don't like LeBron, and therefore I am going to be wildly disingenuous about his son, from folks on social media and some folks in the media, in the actual media. And I'm no big fan of it, if you couldn't tell. This episode of What's Right is brought to you by Daya Pizza, featuring dairy-free cheese made with their new Daya Oat Cream Blend. Dairy-free cheese has come a long way. Daya's leading the charge. Their pizzas offer the melt and stretch of traditional cheese without any dairy. Each Daya pizza starts with a perfectly crisp crust, layered with savory, satisfying toppings, and finished with cheese that melts and stretches beautifully. The Daya Oat Cream Blend delivers a creamy, cheesy texture that's indistinguishable from dairy-based options. Every pizza is crafted to be dairy-free, making it a great choice for anyone seeking more inclusive meal options without compromising on taste. Daya takes the concept of dairy-free to a new level, eliminating FOMO, fear of missing dairy. These pizzas deliver delicious taste and texture, making them perfect for any occasion, from casual dinners to game day spreads. Enjoy a FOMO-free pizza night with Daya. Visit DayaFoods.com for more information, or find Daya Pizza at retailers like Whole Foods, Kroger, and Walmart. Coming soon to select Publix and Sprouts. Follow Daya on Instagram and TikTok for more updates and recipes. All right, Damonza, we're obviously going to, next week, I think we will do like a prop special show, but let's just do a quick recap of where we're at. My quest for an undefeated postseason died early. So then I side quest 10-win postseason. I needed to go undefeated at last weekend, and I got the Washington game very wrong. So recap my record, if you would, please.
So your conference record right now is 1-1. Playoff record, you are 8-3-1.
Pretty
Season
good.
record, 56-43-3.
Yeah, so 56% against the spread. more importantly, and maybe this needs to be a bigger piece of next year, touchdown genie. I'm just I don't bet the anytime touchdown stuff, but everyone loves it. And I've been undefeated on the season on the times I've given one out. I told you guys Kareem Hunt at plus 190. He scored the first touchdown of the game. It was just snap in. Your teaser ended on a sad note. It's not, you know what? I don't blame you for it. I get you had Washington. It was the right way to tease it. But that was a bummer.
Honestly, maybe it's because I already lost the bet. But looking back on it, probably, honestly, I think that teasing Philly back could have been just as smart of a move. But
it was. I mean, looking back on it, it was the obvious move. However, I thought Washington could win the game. And so what I will say is about the Super Bowl line is Kansas City opening 1.5 is fair. I'm not going to act like it's disrespectful. Philly's been so good. I would have been annoyed if Kansas City was underdogs, but it feels like Vegas and the listener or the bettors have kind of learned their lesson there. All right, let's ask a few listener questions, Damonza, before we get out of here.
Indy, Nick, where do you see the game? Where do you see the end game being in the mainstream media is going to be influenced by social media?
I don't think it's positive. And I think that it's one thing for the mainstream media to be taking the temperature and the pulse of what people are talking about genuinely and having that influence their coverage. I think that's a good thing. The problem is social media is because all of the algorithms are made in a way to generate the most engagement and to usually keep people the most angry and outraged and online, that it skews your perspective of what people are actually talking about or thinking about or believing. And that then eventually perception becomes reality. If there is a small portion of the world or that thinks something, but that is amplified on social media, and that then therefore dictates what the actual media is covering, then all of a sudden it does become the story. And so I think that there's a lot of things involving the way discussions are framed and which discussions are rewarded online that I don't know if the mainstream media has a good grasp on what the majority of the population actually care about as opposed to what the majority of their Twitter feed is talking about. All right, let's go to Baref.
Baref, Nick, time to admit your Kingsbury take is a Category 3.
It might be. Maybe he learned. Maybe listen. He was not a good head coach in college. He was not a good head coach at Arizona. But maybe he's been an excellent offensive coordinator for Washington, and I do think he's going to get another head coaching job. But this is a great year for him. All right, let's go on to Monkey, I guess.
He also added, is it more Jayden than him?
Well, listen, Jayden certainly helps, but he helped Jayden. I think Caleb would have had a far better year than he had this year if he had Cliff Kingsbury instead of the coaching situation he had. So Cliff gets credit.
That's fair. Monkey says, this takes on takes is so necessary.
That's not. Well, listen, we're going to try to do more of it. I don't necessarily want to always be like picking fights. So I will also try to find some positive ones.
Pops.
Yeah, I know. It's a rough spot for you. And so I will also try to do some, hey, I saw this and thought it was really good. You know what I mean? A little balance the scales a bit. Yeah. All right, let's do Eric and then get out of here.
Eric says, Bronny is getting undue criticism for a 55th pick, but was he not getting undue praise / coverage for his draft position too?
Well, listen, no, I don't know that he was getting undue praise, but obviously he got more coverage than every second round pick in NBA history combined. But that is, I don't look at those as hand in hand. I would look at it as if coming into the draft, people were like, Bronny and Bron, gonna be an unstoppable duo. He's gonna change the Lakers' fortunes. Then this level of like vitriol and criticism would be, to me, more warranted. But there was none of that. It was a lot of coverage. It wasn't a lot of, oh my God, this guy's gonna be amazing. I mean, I don't think anybody was more optimistic, so to speak, or positive about Bronny than I was. And I will admit, I'm biased to a degree there. And I said the goal is that in 1 to 2 years, maybe he can be a role player. That was like the top end of the optimism surrounding it. All right, like, rate, subscribe, review. Some really cool stuff. Also next week, going to be doing a live show from New Orleans. So that'll be great. See you guys there. First things first in a few hours. Great job, Damonza. Great job, everybody. What's right?